Yo, so this mythology right here makes me think that it ties into the third game because there's a part that somebody says it's a boss. Somebody says this really weird line as you listen to the dialogue before you kill him, and he says some really interesting shit, bro. And it was crazy. I honestly think it was a conspiracy, but that's beyond the point. But let's read this. It says this is the book of Genesis. Bible reference, interesting, right? In the beginning, a great inconsistency flowed out into the nothing. A nothing that was afraid of its own nothingness. A pure terror without color, without sound, without smell. It formed the root of all deification. And eventually it coalesced into the shape of the first deity, Gerudo. No, Gurdu. I said Gerudo? Yeah, because that would be two R's. Gurdu. Gurdu gave birth to all elements and provided them with order and function. In a remote area of space from where Gurdu provided provided order, excuse me. There existed the territory of a chaos formed from elements without shape. Wait, what? Let me just read that one more time. There exists the territory of a chaos formed from elements without shape. This chaos, which had been forgotten during the blessing of Gurdu, existed at first as only an instinctual fear, but eventually the chaos began to take shape and a consciousness was formed within it. At first, this I have to pause real quick because that's getting crazy. At first, this was just a small envious presence, but eventually it grew and became clearer. This marked the appearance of the hatred. The chaotic nature of the hatred further evolved it. Wait, hold on. Let me read that one more time, just for my comprehension. The chaotic nature of the hatred further evolved it. Interesting. So its nature makes it grow, bringing it to a level of a deity. Thus, the ancestor of all archfiends, Vigor, came into being, and the first conflict was set into motion. Oh, so Vigor's in the sword, because if Vigor had no form, his power would be up. That's just my assumption. Interesting. The Book of Evil. The Book of Evil Deities, actually. Ancestors of all archfiends, Vigor began to devour the territory of Gurdu, beginning at the center. During endless solar and lunar eclipses, the earth shook and split. The seas dried upon. I can't even read. The seas dried up, only to flood into existence again. An intense wind swept over everything. I'm sorry, I'm struggling to read this more than normal because I'm actually like seeing it in my head, so it's making it hard. So let's go back to the beginning, I guess, of the sentence. During endless solar lunar eclipses, the earth shook and split, and the seas dried up only to flood into existence again. And an intense wind swept over everything, and fires burned down all of existence, ignoring even the concept of time itself. Eventually, Gurdu lost his strength, and the world once began plunged into the chaos from which it had come. Interesting. Then a great change occurred. During the During the throes of the unending destruction, the body of Gurdu himself split into four. Each part became a deity, self-controlling, sentient wisdom, immortality, and creation. Everything they would come together to restore shape to the world. Oh, eventually, sorry, excuse me. Eventually they would come together to restore shape to the world again, but in their panic-stricken state after their birth, they still had their power, had little power. Excuse me. So they were weak, and this was just to protect itself. Okay, the Book of Dragons. This is getting a little crazy. I'm gonna have to break this up into parts. In this age of pandemonium, the serpent deity of creation was the only one of the deities who managed to keep some semblance of sentient. Oh no, sanity, excuse me. Yeah, oh my god, excuse me. I'm gonna upload all of this just for the laughs. The serpent gave birth to a tiny presence, something that no other being would ever notice, the seeds of life. These seeds managed to take hold and grow in the storm of chaos, and ever so slightly began to evolve, eventually becoming 13 dragons, whose destinies were to be found in battle. The dragons waged endless battle against Vigor, who never ceased in his attempt to bring the world into maelstrom of hatred. Eventually, the dragons were able to banish Vigor to the very ends of the world. I'm just trying to process the fact that there's an end of the world in this. What does that mean? However, it was at this point that the youngest and the lowest in positions of the dragons, the Dark Dragon, summoned the hatred with its feelings of inferiority. Due to this betrayal, Vigor was able to keep from being completely destroyed. Interesting. Book of the Fiends. The Dark Dragon, now full of evil intent, joined with Vigor and his spawn of evil deities to further his advance into the territory of Purdue. This conflict continued throughout the eons of history, and during the struggle, the first spark of human life appeared in the form of the ancient tribes. Of course, old conflicts are not easily resolved, and even in the age of the ancient tribes, the dragon lineage and archfiends continued their battle for tens of thousands of generations. The struggle finally ended when the members of the dragon lineage were able to seal away the archfiends and their spawn. However, during this age of chaos, all the bloodlines of the ancient tribes were mixed, and the legacy of the ancients has been carried on by us, the fiends. Book of the Future. Let me start. The land that the archfiend Vigor once held as his final territory has become this, the land of Vigor. This land was also where the Dark Dragon committed its acts of treachery, and where the ancient tribes lived. That is why their descendants, we fiends, have taken over control of their land. With this land as a barrier, the power of Vigor is, for now, limited only to this earth. Vigor is the demon of destruction, the deity who creates history. When the descendants of this world has reached the breaking point, he will return in a blaze of cleansing flame and recreate the world. Chaos like a flood, bursting the banks of the great river. will fill this world once again, and we will be the first recipients of this bounty. Evolution has and always will begin from here, the land of vigor. It has been several hundred years since the supreme fiend Gogohan. I want to say Gogon. Yeah, Gogon. Yeah, Gogon established what would eventually become the Vigor Empire. Here in, excuse me, let me just start that over because I had to pause. I was just seeing visions in my head as I'm reading this. It's like I'm projecting the story in my thoughts. It's pretty cool. It has been several hundred years since the supreme fiend Gogon established what would eventually become the Vigor Empire. Here in this land, in these lands, if a new warrior of the dragon lineage would appear, the Holy Empire shall be infused with the power of the Archfiends. After 7 days from the reuniting of His Majesty with the Dark Dragon, we fiends will be blessed with exquisite harmony. So first of all, I just have to assess what the fuck I just read, right? Because I don't know, as I'm reading this, I'm getting biblical reference, but in the sense of this is like further detail giving us an understanding of certain context that could have happened that we did not know, but with different names and different contexts. Interesting. Well, clipping this. Enjoy the mistakes. This is gonna be pretty funny.